I would say move with intent, move with purpose, and move with awareness. Yeah. And I guess to kind of describe what that a little bit more is kind of what I've been speaking to is having a certain communication with your body and understanding that when you're put into specific positions, what is your body doing? Because whatever it's doing naturally, chances are, I'm not to say it's right or wrong, but chances are your body's probably falling into some sort of compensation, right? And for you to be able to realize if it's a good or a bad one is very important.
This is the Total Human Optimization Podcast, the show that explores how to become the best version of yourself. We go in depth with experts in fitness, nutrition, and well-being to examine new ideas and time-tested strategies that can help you on the path to optimization.
On today's show, we're talking with Cristian Plascencia about staying loose and mobile. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the Total Human Optimization Podcast. Today, we got one of my favorite people from the On It Academy, Cristian Plascencia, in the house. Did I say that right?
Yeah, that's close enough. Plascencia, whatever type of spin is fine.
Awesome. Yeah, so if you go into the On It Academy gym and you're going to see a guy there just kind of doing some kind of thrusting actions into the air, it's going to look really seductive, for some people, not me, of course. But, he's doing all sorts of things with his hips. He's going in, he's going out. He's really just not caring at all. Sometimes it's in sync with the music, which is great, that's going on in the gym. So what exactly are you doing in there?
Ooh, what exactly am I doing when I'm thrusting my hips back and forth? Well, what I'm actually doing and what's going through my mind are two different things. But what I'm actually doing, for the most part, is just really having a communication with my body in terms of, whether it be working on my hips, just taking them through like the full ranges of motion. And same thing kind of just like with the upper body and individual joints. I'm all about, movement, the way I kind of see it, regardless of who you are. If you're an athlete, if you're a general population client coming into the gym, for the most part, you need to be able to move a specific way. It's very different. Just like you said, it's very, very different. I don't think too many gyms and trainers across the country fully understand really what the hell is actually going on. But once they get a taste of it, I think you kind of get a little understanding of it.
Now, on the show with us today, we have Sean Hyson, our co-host. And Sean, have you done any of these type of things that Cristian is known for?
Yeah, I mean, I'm familiar with basic mobility exercises. I've done it myself. It's been in the fitness industry for a while now. I think people are kind of tuned into the fact that it exists, but I've never seen it done the way Cristian teaches it in his durability
classes. It's a beautiful
classes.
thing, isn't it?
It is a beautiful thing. And what I'd like to know is it's kind of a tough sell for a lot of people because it's not glamorous like lifting weights is. You don't get a pump from it. It doesn't really make you feel like you're getting better the first day that you do it. So how did you get turned on to it, Cristian, and how did you like to sell it to other people? How do you get them excited about it and realize that it's important?
So I would first and foremost have to say my mentors, Shane Hines, Eric Esick, John Wolf, who are all part of the academy here. They've all been practicing, these type of specific movements now for, at least the past 10, 15 years. Them being so generous, I have passed along, these awesome movements and the awesome knowledge that comes along with it. Honestly, what turned me onto it was the fact that I was tight, immobile, and really just unhappy with what I was doing in the gym and kind of what was satisfying myself at the end of the day. I wasn't really seeing too many benefits from it. Lifting weights and getting big is awesome. I think there's a time and place for that. But I also think that being able to move your body the way it was designed to without any pains was a little bit higher on the totem pole for me. So that's what kind of, I guess, bridged me more towards the movement side rather than, I guess, if I wouldn't really want to compare it to, weight side and unweighted side, people who don't, like to lift weights. But yeah, I would say I got addicted to the feeling. The way that my body, my nervous system responded after doing these movements was something that I never felt before. And just like you had mentioned, Sean, you're not going to see benefits maybe the first day, the first week. I know, Orlando, you've kind of been going back and forth doing
you
some more
hits.
So much, man. Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is that at first, I remember this first day I put you through maybe like 2 or 3 stretches. It looked like you were about to pass out. I think you even said you were going to pass out.
I could have sworn my hip was going to come out of place.
And it's awesome because it kind of pisses you off in the beginning. You don't know why, but it just pisses you off. Maybe for some people, just the fact that they let their bodies get so tight for this long and they've never realized it. But yeah, man, I mean, after maybe, I'm talking every single day for probably about 6 or 7 months, I just hit this specific routine that I adopted from, like I said, John Wolf and Shane Hines and Eric Esick, and it helped me out tremendously. I would say maybe after about 2 or 3 weeks, I was able to really feel a big difference, specifically in my hips.
Yeah, so what were your problem areas before? You had tight hips. You were an athlete, right? You were a basketball player?
Yes, a basketball player. I mean, I didn't play in college. I mean, I did the whole intramural deal. You know, I played in high school. I did the whole traveling basketball, you know, since the age of about like 12 on until, you know, senior year of high school. And exactly, the main thing that was really taught to me was my hips. And it's funny, I didn't realize it until I did a workout with John Wolf in Salinas, California, where his original gym was, and he killed me with body weight. And at that time, I think I was like, you know, cleaning, you know, 205, which isn't a lot, but for my little body, I felt like it was a good amount. You know, I was deadlifting, squatting a lot, but it wasn't transferring over to my body, you know?
Yeah, so it seems like everybody, like that's the most common problem everybody has. Maybe everybody has, but you know, I don't think everybody realizes it until they start trying to do these things. So is that really a common thing? Is that the average things? Like everybody's hips usually are pretty bad?
Yeah, for the most part, that's the consensus. I mean, if somebody walks through the doors here at the Honored Academy, chances are I could probably put them through maybe 2 or 3 different hip exercises, and 99% of people in there will fail. And there isn't necessarily a pass and fail, just in terms of, I guess, just visually being able to, you know, go through the whole movement without having any pains or without having any compensations, which is a big deal, which is a really big thing that we kind of see here as people move, you know, as they're squatting, pushing, pulling, whatever it may be. If you have a certain eye for it, you can definitely see that certain areas are tight, and that's going to limit you in your performance.
Yeah, so to be clear, the reason people's hips are tight is we sit on our asses too much all day long. We're in front of computers, we're in a car all day, and you just the hip flexors on the front of your pelvis, they shorten up, and that can cause back problems and all kinds of posture disorders. So, Cristian, what are your top 3 hip mobility movements we should all be working on?
Okay, for sure. If I had to put it into 3, I would say my very, very favorite one would be, I call it kind of just hip around the worlds. It's basically when you were standing with your feet, you know, both parallel, facing forward, and you're literally just like moving your hips as far forward, as far out towards the sides laterally, and then as far back as you can behind you. It looks, again, like Orlando said in the beginning, ridiculous. If you're walking into this gym and you're looking at me, you have
I love it when it syncs
clue.
with the music that's going on. That's my favorite.
You don't even realize it. You don't tend to, but your nervous system just picks up the beat and you kind of just move with it, you know. But that hip around the world one that I was mentioning is definitely one of them. Another one would definitely be a shin box. So kind of a variation from a 90-90 switch that you would see people on the ground. For people who are familiar with maybe jiu-jitsu or some more ground-based combat sports, have probably seen something of this sort.
So you're talking about sitting with your front leg bent 90 degrees, your back leg bent 90 degrees. Your legs almost form like an S shape on the floor.
Exactly. Your front foot would be in external rotation, so a lot of times what you would see like in a pigeon or a half pigeon stretch, and then your back foot would be in internal rotation. So that right there, the internal rotations is a lot of times where you can kind of zap out real quick to see if people have tight compensations, you know, especially going on in that front hip flexor. So that being my second movement, I would say the third one after that would probably have to be just something as simple as a single leg standing hip circle, which is, you know, you have one foot planted on the ground. For the most part, anytime people come in, if it's their first time, I'm going to have them use the wall, use a pole for some type of assistance. Just because, you know, although the hips are very important, it's a very a big joint complex that we see a lot of tightness. And like you said, causing a lot of back pain. We also really prioritize the spine here. So if people are, again, compensating and their spines are kind of, I guess, waving from side to side, trying to execute this exercise, then we know that maybe this is definitely a spot we should be hanging out and playing around a little bit. But yeah, that hip circle that's a killer.
Okay, so these things, as you've mentioned to me in the past, it's not something that you have to do. This is what I'm going into the gym to do for 30 minutes to an hour. It doesn't have to be like that. You can take your current plan, whatever it may be, building strength or cardio, whatever you're working on, and integrate that so that you get the benefits of everything. Is that correct?
Exactly. And that's the best way, I guess, to kind of go about it at first, because especially with new clients coming in, just like you said, Sean, people, it's not sexy. It's not instantly gratifying, right? You're not going to see a big muscle pump come from it. So rather than try and change your whole program around and kind of go cold turkey from what you've been doing, you're better off doing exactly what you did, Orlando, which was you took about 6 movements, right? You implemented them into your workout before you actually started. You implemented 3 or 4 stretches after your workout. And then you started realizing over time, I mean, I guess you would be the best person to speak to this, but I would say within a 3 to 4 week time period?
3 to 4 weeks, I started feeling, to preface this, I came to Christian and I was like, because I do a lot of running with the soccer and everything, and I had this lingering pain in my lower back starting at my back of my knee, my right knee, and it would go all the way up my thigh and all the way to the lower back. And I rested. I didn't run for a month, and I still felt it. And when I started to try to run again, the pain was still there. So I came to Christian with a sobbing dog eyes. Christian, can you please fix me? I don't know what's going on. And he started showing me these movements. And like he says, it wasn't instantly gratifying. There wasn't an instant fix. But over time, 2-3 weeks, I don't even feel it anymore. It's completely gone. And I can notice in those stretches that you showed me, like, I'm going deeper now than I ever have before. I'm getting more flexible. And, more flexibility you have, obviously, the less chance of injury you get. So, yeah.
Definitely. And something to kind of even speak to that, too, which I think of a lot of times is a big misconception, is you said, you got more flexible, which is definitely true. I think, your range of motion definitely did open up. But more importantly, because you're an athlete, you like to participate in competitions like soccer and certain deals like that. And even just something as simple as working out, with weights. You also gained mobility. So a lot of times people will say flexibility and mobility and think they're maybe one and the same. So mobility is actually, from what we would kind of term it and coin it here, and as well as FRC, who is headed by Dr. Andrea Ospina, he terms mobility as flexibility, so having that range of motion, but then also having that strength component to it. That strength component is not just, passively, I'm going to hang down towards my toes and try to stretch out my hamstrings, hoping that I'm just overnight or over weeks or over months, I'm going to get more flexible. That may happen. You may be just like any type of adaptation, the more you do something, the better you're going to become at it. But those drills that we had you do were also very active. Wouldn't you say? Like, you probably broke a sweat after the majority
I was tired.
of them. Yeah, exactly. And that's perfectly normal. Also, a big thing is like you said, we keep talking to the instant gratification thing. And I think a lot of people at first, especially when coming into the gym, if they're starting, this new 6-week transformation program, or if they're, getting back into the gym, they may view, just coin it mobility, flexibility for right now, similar to weight training, in the sense that, okay, I'm going to hit it hard today, and then tomorrow I'm going to feel that after pump, or I'm going to see that after pump. With this type of training, because it's very much nervous system, right? Because it's very much getting into, I don't want to dive too much into like sciencey stuff, but like what we consider fascia, so more of like the tissues going on into the body. It takes a while to see adaptations. Like, unlike muscles that may be able to adapt within, a week, 2 weeks, something like this is going to take a month, and I know at first people are like, well, I don't know if I have a month. I don't know if I want to put a whole month, 2 months to get like an extra half inch lifting my leg out to the side. But then again, I guess everyone has their own deal and their own totem pole, right?
Yeah, no, this is great stuff. And I like the point you made about the passive stretching. The problem with static stretching, as we were all taught in like grade school gym classes, is there is no active component to it. Gaining range of motion isn't just about lengthening one muscle. It's about strengthening the opposing muscles so that they help pull you into that greater range of motion. And that's something that we do so well at the academy here. Can you talk a little bit more about like the sets and reps we need for mobility? Because you mentioned like throwing a couple stretches and mobility moves in at the beginning of the workout or the end. But like, what kind of put in the layman's terms that we understand, workout terms, like how many sets and reps of this move and that move should we be doing?
Definitely. I would like to say, to keep it simple, I would say, before, if you're going to go into a big workout, right, where you're going to do, back squats, deadlifts, bench press, the conventional stuff that you would normally see at the gym. I would say each exercise, because it's very active, I would say in the beginning, something as simple as 8 circles or 8 movements in one direction is normally good enough. Excuse me. In terms of sets, I wouldn't see it necessary doing more than just, one time. Now, what could be taking maybe a proactive step to that is, okay, you do all, the one set for 8 reps in each direction before your workout, but then also taking the time maybe throughout the day, right? Depending on, if you're sitting down at a desk all day, or if you're moving around all day, which is even better, take that time to do even less than that. So take, 4 reps each direction. But it's more important to think about, I'm not going to burn myself out with, a mobility exercise for an hour, right? I would rather do it 5 minutes here, 5 minutes here, and more times throughout the day rather than just one sitting of doing it. Because, again, just like the specificity of adaptation, like the more you do something, the better you're going to become at it.
Right. So you can do it a little bit while you're watching TV in the morning, while you're brushing your teeth, even if you're riding in a subway car, and hopefully you're alone on the train car, you have a little space.
Exactly.
Yeah. Like just standing up at the desk, every maybe like hour or so, I'll stand up at the desk and I'll do I'll look first to make sure, people next to me aren't staring me down or anything, but I'll do some little hip thrust movements and some turning, just some circles and stuff like that with the legs. And yeah, it feels great, man. It's amazing. So one thing is you're starting to work with some pretty elite athletes here. So this goes for everybody. I don't care how great of an athlete you are. So you're working with some college athletes that are getting ready to go to the NFL Combine. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely. So I've had the pleasure, like you said, of working with the 2017 group here for the NFL Combine. Excuse me. And it's basically, like you said, a group of collegiate athletes, all football players that are gearing up for their combine days and their pro days here. As you can guess, it's not just football players, but specifically football players go through a lot of wear and tear, right? They beat up their bodies, on a depending if you're a lineman, you're getting smashed on. Your spine is taking a beating, every single play. If you're a wide receiver or a skills player, you're planting, cutting every single time. And again, adaptations, your body ends up becoming what you do, right? So if you're staying like in a tight and restrictive alignment all day and putting all those forces, compressive forces on your spine and those joints, your body's going to react and just tighten up and squeeze up. So, with my realm with these players right now, I get to see them about 3 to 4 times a week. And what it is basically I warm them up before their lifting or their field session. And that'll be, like you said, the sets and the reps, right? And we basically go through their whole spine. So going from hips, all the way into like their chest, into their neck, into the shoulders, into the toes, into the ankles, the elbows, everything you could really think of, all the joints, especially the major ones.
So is this stuff that they've done before, or is this all new to them?
Never done it before.
So what's the reaction? I want to know, like, these huge dudes, because I see them in the gym all the time. They're just massive men. And the fact that they're doing all these things is really interesting to me. So, what's going on?
They have the first day, and honestly, like the first week is like the most rewarding time, because I think more importantly than anything else, like you have to be able to feel this. I can tell you about this. I can talk to to this podcast and to all the listeners and tell them you need to do hip exercises because it's good for your back. But until you necessarily put your body through that and you feel what the heck, what it's doing to your body, it's the second you do it, the moment you realize like, damn, I should have been doing this a long time ago. And that's basically their response is, I wish I was taught this in high school, in college, at some point. But yeah, I mean, at first they're tight, man. And for a lot of the positions I know I eventually want to get them in, it takes a while to get there, but the good thing is I've yet to have an athlete, or I've yet to even have a group that's like ever been, I guess, against anything I've ever tried to preach to them. They've hit it just as hard as they've hit their weightlifting. And it's funny, they'll even tell me like, dude, I sweat more with you. Like I feel like I'm working more with you. And that's nothing against CJ who does our strength department here. It's just their nervous system has no clue what the hell's going on. So you're putting them through these movements and they're already wacky as is, right? Yeah, like you said. So for them, they're like, I'm not looking cool right now, but they feel it. They know what it is. So after like that first week, they're sold.
Yeah, if it adds years to their career, they don't mind looking foolish for a few minutes, right?
Exactly.
What are the most common issues that the football players you find are dealing with in their bodies?
Keep it as simple as possible. I would probably say tight hips. It's something as simple as
Seems
being
like
able.
it's universal.
It's so universal, man. And honestly, I will tell you, to even dive in a little bit deeper, it's being able to just lift your leg out laterally, keeping your leg locked out. You'd be surprised how many people, first of all, can't lock out their leg because they're in, so much flexion, their knees bent basically all day, right? But more importantly, we live in a world that's so much, we go forward and back. We move, we walk forward. We very rarely sidestep throughout our day. We very rarely, open up our hip and walk, from a lateral perspective. So again, your body becomes exactly what you tell it to do,
Yeah. So what is this, most of our listeners are in their 20s and 30s. If they get on this type of stuff now, what are they going to be looking at when they're in their older ages?
So more importantly, forget that, lower back won't hurt. You'll have maybe a lower rate of injury, right? You'll be able to perform and be with your kids going out to their games, playing catch with them without having to worry about, weird injuries happening because you haven't, used those specific muscles or tissues before. Is this certain sense of connection with your body. And, I've said maybe nervous system on here a couple times. And anytime I say nervous system, I'm kind of thinking more mind and body connection, right? I'm thinking less of muscles, but I'm thinking more of like your brain and your spinal cord. And I believe there's something to be said about this communication that you have with your body. So, to give you an example, before I started this type of practice, if I was, if my lower body was hurting me, I couldn't tell you exactly where the heck it was coming from. I can say, I think it's somewhere around my hip, but I didn't have that type of connection, that type of communication with my body to where I can understand, it's not my hip. It's actually my knee or my ankle that's really bugging me, or vice versa, right? So I think more importantly, once you gain like a certain relationship with your body, you only get one, right? And you're with it for your whole life. So I think that connection is huge.
There's one exercise, Cristian, you taught me that I love, and I use it all the time now, and I think all the listeners at home should try it out right now. It's where you have your arms straight overhead and you're making the circles, and the idea is just to deactivate the upper traps, which gets super tight from sitting in front of a computer or at a desk all day. And by doing that, by just calming those muscles down, you get all this range of motion in your neck and your shoulders again, and it really helps you feel better after, just like I said, like a lot of desk posture. Can you describe how to do that and explain it better than I just did?
Yeah, definitely. So just because the coach I am, I'm going to be very, very technical on this one. So, if you're standing with your feet, both of them facing forward, and then again, both of them parallel to each other, your feet about hip width apart. For a lot of people, I like to keep a soft bend in your knees. More importantly, as you move up your chain and you go into your hips, I like to say, tuck your hips underneath you. So that's basically flexing your hips forward. So for listeners to kind of hard to maybe visualize that, think about trying to squeeze your glutes. And that's a lot of times going to help bring the bottom portion of your pelvis forward. Now, the huge portion, like you had said, you get the arms overhead, right? So we'll have both arms overhead. A lot of times, if you're standing there with the stance I just described and you put your hands overhead, that space between the bottom portion of your rib cage and your belly button, that area I like to call the lower back saver or the lower back killer. So if you allow that space between your rib cage and your belly button to flare open and increase, chances are your lower back's going to be taking a lot of strain from this movement and anything that you do, right? Or if you keep that gap closed in, right, and you're being very mindful to that area right there, and you're doing those overhead circles, the exercise becomes a whole different animal, right? And now you start talking to using your whole body throughout this movement, and again, establishing that type of communication, like, hey, what the heck's actually happening here? Like, I thought I was squeezing my hips, but now my butt's going back. You know what I mean? So yeah, to kind of just speak to that one, like you said, for people who are overly active just on their laptops, on their computers all day, and their shoulders are always kind of tend to shrug up and get a lot of these weird headaches and a lot of these weird neck strains, it's because, you haven't everything just so shrugged and activated up. And if you can learn to depress your shoulders, so just pulling your shoulders down and away from your ears, using more of like your lats and your back muscles, those deeper muscles, then chances are you're going to be able to relieve a lot of that strain.
So the movement again is your elbows are locked, your arms are overhead, you're going to make circles. Like and you're pointing your hands like as if you had a remote control in each one, right?
Exactly. And that again kind of helps people reinforce the arms locked out. Chances are, if you could feel your triceps burning, you're doing it right. And I remember that for like the first 6 or 7 months that I was doing that exercise, that was my indicator that I was actually doing it correctly, which triceps were on. If you're feeling a nice deep burn in your shoulder blades behind you, again, those upper trap muscles, those muscles up by your neck, those are what's up and active all day. If we can get them to pull down away from your ears as you're going through those circles, then again, the lats, the shoulder blades, the scaps are going to be able to reinforce and activate a lot better for people.
So you do those circles for about a minute, right? And then you just kind of test your neck out and see how you're moving, and it feels a lot better.
If you can do it for a minute, hell yeah. Chances are, from what I've seen so far, specifically like the NFL Combine guys, I remember the first time we did it, the lineman we have right now, his name's Kent Perkins, he was only able to do it seriously for about 10 seconds. And now we're at the point now, which it doesn't seem maybe like a lot better, but now it's like at 20, 25. They should add 25.
That to the combine. They should add that as an actual part, you know? It seems so simple.
So simple. And it would seem like a movement that putting your hands overhead is a pretty normal daily, task. Whether you be lifting up, to grab something out of your pantry or whatever it may be, you would think that would be normal, right? But a lot of us, like you said, we spend so much time in a fixed position that everything is just going to learn to adapt that way.
Most people can't raise their arms over their head without their ribs flaring, their body kind of swaying back, the elbows bending. So what Cristian's saying is there's a correct way to do everything. There's even reaching overhead, a movement we probably all take for granted. There is a proper way to do it, and when you learn how to do it properly, it translates so much better to any kind of athletic skills, whether it's shooting a basketball, dunking a basketball, reaching overhead, pressing overhead. Do it properly, and you'll set yourself up for better performance and less risk for injury.
Exactly. 100%. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. So people that don't have access to the On Academy here in Austin, where can they learn more of these type of movements that you're telling us about?
Definitely. So up until about a month ago, we had an on-demand service online where you were able to train with all of the trainers here at the On Academy, as well as our master coaches that partake in the continuing education courses that we provide. But up until, like I said, about a month ago, we put that on hold. We're actually kind of building out our new and improved system for that. Fortunately, we also do have social media these days. Myself being on Instagram and Facebook, post videos almost on I would say about a daily basis, and each one of them kind of just pertaining to different scopes of movement, right? So we've kind of been talking about, the more of the flexibility and the mobility, very concentrated practices that open up range of motion. But I also do, working with the combine players and working with specific populations with just certain, call it primal movements, call it movements that I just see necessary for them for them to be able to achieve in order to be successful at whatever they are doing. But yeah, social media, so Instagram, Facebook. We also do have the Honored Academy Instagram, which I'm sure a lot of people are probably maybe already following. If not, please go over there. It's an awesome source for just every type of exercise and health and wellness that it could provide for the listeners. But yeah, eventually that online service is coming. I guess specifically if they wanted to stay more in tune with myself, I do have a website and a blog. I'm actually getting ready to put out my newest blog, which deals with exactly what we're talking about today, which is just certain tendencies that I kind of see people fall into at the gym and simple ways to kind of help with that. Probably within about maybe every month or so, I try to put out video tutorials. So whether it be like 45 seconds of exactly the exercise you guys were describing. So the overhead circles, the shin box switches that we kind of talked about in the beginning, so that viewers can kind of get a better visual for it.
Okay. So can you leave us with one human optimization tip? If you can give any type of tip to our listeners, what would that be?
I would say move with intent, move with purpose, and move with awareness. Yeah. And I guess to kind of describe what that a little bit more is kind of what I've been speaking to, is having a certain communication with your body and understanding that when you're put into specific positions, what is your body doing? Because whatever it's doing naturally, chances are, not to say it's right or wrong, but chances are your body's probably falling into some sort of compensation, right? And for you to be able to realize if it's a good or a bad one is very important.
Thanks for listening. Make sure to subscribe to us on iTunes to get the latest episodes they release and to visit us at onnit.com. That's ONNIT.com for the latest in functional foods, equipment, and supplementation. This episode was co-hosted by Sean Heisen. I'm Orlando Rios, and you've been listening to Total Human Optimization.